on what happened this week. You raised my question and answer with Dick this morning. I would like to see questions about the thing, but of course there is no restriction to the questions you ask at all. We did ask for anybody wanted to put questions in writing in case you couldn't ask them today. Nothing's come forward at all, so I assume you want to ask them here. So, if you like, I'll actually sort of...
Okay, yeah, Cherry. Yeah.
So, first question, please. Andy?
It's about the rituals in the opening and closing of the Buddhism. Myself, I found that I've developed a natural respect for the Buddhism over the years. But I felt here that it goes a bit over the top. You know, I know the reasons for doing individual things like Buddhism and all that. But while I'm here, I do it out of natural respect for other people. But when we're in that campaigns, how much you can do what we don't feel inside?
I don't think you should do what you don't feel inside anywhere, because it's just false, isn't it?
Yeah.
But equally, I mean, it's good that you're asking the question, because obviously you're concerned that maybe something's, missing in your feeling for the Gohonzon, maybe. So you can't be too respectful for the Gohonzon.
Well, it's not exactly what I don't feel inside, it's just if that's not a natural part of your nature, to sort of keep moving.
What is it particularly bugs you?
Well, it's nothing in particular, but it's the whole, it seems so orderly and to be sort of more enforced upon you than coming inside.
Well, when you say orderly, you mean because there's a system for doing it?
Yes, yeah.
That's so that people don't forget anything, isn't it? It's a purely practical thing. I still don't quite see what it is that you're really... What is...
Well, when we had the class, we had sort of mini class in Sparrow.
Yes.
I mean, I could stay there. I felt like I was in class of school kids where we kept sort of stopping in the garden and, to see great people being told how to put turn the key and all this. It just seemed very silly. Did you ever try that?
That's the reason for it. It's because those locks are extremely difficult. They've got a knack.
Yeah.
And that's the reason for it. So rather than keeping everyone waiting while you fumble and struggle, which also upsets people a little bit,
Yeah.
They think, oh gosh, why can't they do it? Rather than that it should be done smoothly and easily. This is the purpose of it. So if you go to Shohondo in Japan to see the Daigohonzon, everything is very smooth and, very beautifully and done. No hitches. If you have a hitch, you immediately disturb people's minds. So it's because of concern for other people that you take care to rehearse things properly. So even at Richmond also, the doors of the Butsudan in the upstairs Butsuma are quite difficult to deal with. So therefore, a good VCG, before they do anything about it, in public as it were, they'll make sure they can do it smoothly, because such things are irritations for others. So it entirely comes in the end to respect for the Gohonzon and concern for others.
Actually, I find that I get quite irritable when it's too orderly, it seems
But your mind shouldn't be on what they're doing, even.
Well,
that's the point. No, Andy, your mind should be on the Gohonzon. That's where your mind should be, both when the Butsudan doors are open, when they're closing, and right up to the time when you do your last sancha.
That sounds a bit rigid, saying you've got to think a certain thing.
No, I'm not being rigid. I'm talking about the Gohonzon.
Well, yeah.
The purpose of your practice is to become one with the Gohonzon, and to remain one with the Gohonzon as long as possible. If there is some mistake, or someone knocks over a vase, or trips over the stool, or whatever, then that is going to disturb people's concentration on the Gohonzon. So out of both respect for the Gohonzon and the Gohonzon in people's lives, these things are carefully organized so that there should be no mistakes. You understand? Yeah, please do. Because, you may feel that because in some way you perhaps rather anti-organized things. But there are certain things in life that should be organized and have to be organized well, otherwise people suffer. So for example, even if you take this summer course, if Ricky and Kazuo Fuji and everybody hadn't organized it well, and really chanted and thought about every detail of the journey, someone could easily, have suffered, either through missing the plane or, anything can go wrong. So it's the same with everything. Detailed organization is necessary because of that. So sometimes people say, why must everything be so highly organized? But of course the ultimate answer is because of Sanchashima. When you have a group of members moving, it's different to a group of people moving. Because there is always Sanchashima waiting to try to get in if any gaps and holes have been missed. So this is why in all Nichiren Shoshu activities, the organization is very carefully chanted about and arranged. It is different. You understand? Please do. Okay. Anyone else want to ask about that same point? Or are you all clear about it?
The illustration of the officer is very actively done.
It what?
Everybody taking the making of that.
That's right.
And doing their utmost to make it.
Yeah. Yes, good example. Did you hear what Red said? He said the example of an orchestra, which in order to produce beautiful music has to, work in perfect harmony. Okay. I'll leave it to Ricky to choose.
Okay. Paul.
Yeah. Just a small one, this is personal. Next month, quite a few people in the UK are going to be at the Gakkai, at Richmond. Could you just give me a meaning and why is it so very significant?
Good question. A paper has gone out to all district leaders explaining about it, but I'll just go through the main points. The word Gojukai means receiving the precept. So that really conveys everything about Gojukai. That is to say, at Gojukai, in front of the Gohonzon, and in the presence of a priest, you commit yourself to embracing the Gohonzon and to discarding all previous philosophies or teachings that you may have practiced. Why must Gojukai only be in front of a priest? Because the priests have a specific function of guarding the treasures and the purity of the teachings. Therefore, their minds and lives are always concentrated on that particular function, and their entire ichinen is towards it. Therefore, quite rightly, that ceremony can only be conducted by a priest. So the form of the ceremony is that you do a ceremonial gongyo. Sometimes, if it's more early morning or evening, the priest may do morning or evening gongyo instead. And then, at the end of that, the people who are to receive Gojukai, who are really somewhere to the front, nearest to the Gohonzon, and the priest will then ask 3 times whether you agree to embracing the Gohonzon and discarding all previous teachings. And the answer is, yes, I will. But this question and answer, because such people attending Gojo Kai are all very new members, are not only answered by the person, but also by everyone else who is present. In other words, everyone else also is undertaking to support and help that person to embrace the teachings, embrace the Gohonzon. And then, after that question is asked 3 times, the priest will then place a rolled up Gohonzon, quite a big one, about this size, when it's rolled up. He'll place it gently on people's heads. Sorry, while those questions are being asked. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. All right? So, and each person in turn, in that way. When the significance of this, of course, is not so much in the ceremony as in what is going on in one's own life. Like all ceremonies, they should just be a framework or a setting within which something important is occurring to people's lives. So that is the main thing, that in your own life you understand the symbolic reason for the ceremony, but it becomes a reality in your own life. Okay, so very briefly that's it. So you only receive Gojo Kai once in a lifetime, and this is why, of course, since priests haven't visited us very often in the past, because there were too few of them, many of the members in the UK had never received Gojo Kai. And always, Gojo Kai should be received before you receive the Gohonzon in the normal, and it's a sort of logical thing, isn't it, in the normal state of affairs. But because of the few priests and the remarkable growth of Nichiren Shoshu Soka Gakkai, both in Japan and overseas, it simply wasn't possible for the priests to get to every country enough. Therefore, Nitatsu Shonin, the previous high priest, agreed that we could receive Gohonzons before receiving Gojo Kai, and then receive Gojo Kai as soon as possible. But now we're doing things in the strictly correct way. In other words, there are now enough priests to be able to get around the world. Also, I believe that we are no longer babies. That is to say, we can wait for 6 months until the priests make their visit. Okay. Yes, is it a question about that?
Yes, about that. Does receiving Gojo Kai after being practicing for a short time, say a year or whatever, does it have any, you know when they say we receive the Gohonzon, you can't change the karma, you receive the Gohonzon. Does having not had Gojo Kai, will that affect that or any other aspects of practice?
No, because all the law of Nam-myoho is natural. Therefore, there is a natural compensation where the normal system has to be changed for good reasons, in exactly the same way as if you find on a particular day you haven't got time because of some change in your program to chant any daimoku, you no need to fear. Although, of course, it's better to chant daimoku, but if the circumstances are such that it's impossible, for good reasons, then always, the daimoku that you chanted yesterday will carry you through until tomorrow. In other words, the law of life is natural, therefore the compensation is natural, where some normal procedure or normal routine or rhythm has to be broken for some reason. So in the same way, the fact that the priests were unable to come to the UK regularly, the Buddha state in life recognizes that. The Buddha state's in your life anyway, isn't it? So the Buddha state knows all the circumstances and will compensate. Okay, so you don't miss anything. On the other hand, Gojo Kai is very significant. When you receive it, you'll feel that, you'll feel something important in your life. All right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. What did you?
Yes, Paul.
This question is about Buddhism and violence, war. I know that Soka Gakkai is totally opposed to war, and I personally am. But there are a lot of passages in the Gosho, usually to Gakkai, of course, where there seems to be a kind of acceptance on Nichiren's part that personal violence may be necessary. We don't need to quote him. There are 2 or 3 times in the Gosho where he says, arm yourself well, take up their soldiers, and in the one where he actually has been involved in the fight, he says, one of the Buddhist dads is getting swordsmanship. So he's obviously had to use physical violence on someone else. Is that to do with the time and place? What should our own personal attitude be? I know it's a hypothetical question, but what if someone threatens violence on yourself or your family? What should your deepest attitude be to them?
Well, of course, you have to defend yourself. There can be absolutely no doubt about that. But because you are chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, you should be able to defend yourself with the minimum harm to the other person. That is to say, whereas some people may go, for example, blind with rage when they're attacked and kill the other person, right? I'm sure, because you're chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, you won't do that. So, of course, it's also a part of the times. We don't live in times now like the times in those days. Life was very cheap, and people were all armed, and there was ambushes and killing and murder was very common. So this is why Nichiren Daishonin was always telling Shijo Kinga to be careful and not to go, can I finish? And not to go about unarmed. So Shijo Kinga is a precious person. Anybody, in fact, who's chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is precious, but particularly when there are only about 1,000, as there were in Nichiren Daishonin's day, and as there are now in the UK. So, likewise, when Nichiren Daishonin was attacked at Komatsubara, he was ambushed by a large party of soldiers under one of the feudal lords. In that fight, 2 of Nichiren Daishonin's escort were killed. Nichiren Daishonin himself was cut on the head by a sword. If Nichiren Daishonin had been killed then, there would be no Daiga Honsen. So if Shijo Kinga had been killed, the reason for a lot of the Gosho wouldn't have occurred. He wouldn't have been able to, through his life, to have taught us so much through what Nichiren Daishonin guided him over. Likewise, if one of us is killed, then that purpose in life is not completed. So in every way, it's of course necessary to defend oneself, but with wisdom.
If I could question too, the reason I ask is that is more or less what I said to someone who asked me this question in the context before.
Yeah.
What would you do if you were attacked or your family were attacked? I said, well, of course, in those circumstances, I think my natural responsibility is to defend myself. And the point I made back was, well, that's all this nation is doing. They expand in the way, they just said, well, that's what this nation is doing. They are defending themselves against the aggressor. They're defending their family. And I found it very hard to combat.
Yes, but you see, there is a tendency for people, members, certainly non-members, to get involved only with the surface of the matter. What tactics are used in order to rectify the situation is a surface matter. It's a political matter. And it's not possible for us to be politicians at the moment anyway. One day we may have more influence in politics, or rather the Gohonzon may. So we have to look below all that. What is important for us is to understand the karma which created such a situation, and then work to change that karma. So, of course, karma, like a nation's karma, can't be changed overnight, any more than we can change our own karma overnight. We have to work at it over a period. And it's exactly the same over the nation's karma. The important thing is that we should understand through the happening of the Falklands the nature of our nation's karma, and really chant to change it, and of course, most important of all, do shakabuku. Because it's only through shakabuku that we will, in the end, the Gonzen will have a profound influence on every aspect of society, isn't it? Including politics. So this is what we should be awakened to through this happening. These two things that we shouldn't get lost in the surface problem and forget that we're practicing Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism. Therefore, what we have to go to is the inherent cause of such happenings, isn't it? Okay. So, of course, you're entitled to express an opinion on whether you agree or you don't agree with the way things were handled. But that's entirely one's own personal opinion. As a religious movement, as Buddhists, what we have to go is below that, isn't it? Okay, so I think that I think I mentioned it in the last editorial in the UK Express, but I really feel now that in Japan we are beginning to see the results of the billions and billions and billions of daimoku that have been chanted, over the last 30 years, as Soka Gakkai grew and grew and grew. And this is now appearing at a national level. 5 years ago, you could see it at community level, neighborhood level. You could see the effect of all that chanting in that neighborhood or community, in the way the community was somehow developing, somehow becoming more happy, somehow opening up, somehow there were more children's playgrounds, so and so and so and so. But now you can really see, you're beginning to see it on a national level. Now, of course, the first indication of it is that, as I've mentioned a lot recently, that Japan is the only major nation in the world that is a nuclear-free zone. And without a question of doubt, this has been a great deal to do with the daimoku of the Soka Gakkai. As Sensei rightly said, there are many other people too in Japan who really desire peace. There are many other people who couldn't care less. Those people have also worked for it, the people who really care. But most vital of all is all that daimoku and the effect that it's had. So I really feel you can see Japan changing its karma. Though you're quite young, but in all my life, Japan was always known as quite a militaristic nation. Really, all my life, ever since I was 9 or 10 years old, Japan's been at war. So it became known as a militaristic nation. So this is really changing. And it's not just because of the atomic bombs. Because America has exerted colossal pressure on Japan to increase their armaments and their activities in the defense of that part of the world. And I'm happy to say that some way, somehow, despite lots of political opposition, they've managed to avoid becoming involved in nuclear preparations. Okay, does that make it clear? Great, okay.
Lady next.
Yes, since I've been working, I've always wondered why in the third prayer we offer the silent daimoku from Nichiren Shohu. Why? Because we talk about the sound in Nagyo and Nagyo, as pure is the sound. So why only this one is silent?
Yes, many people ask that question. So the last time we were on Tosa, we asked the answer to that. And did you all hear the question, by the way, about silent daimoku in the third prayer? So the reason, and Soka Gakkai didn't know the answer. Japanese people don't ask questions like that. So it was referred to the head temple, and the answer was that it is purely a ceremonial thing. That is to say that in the first two prayers for Nichiren Daishonin and Nikko, you are expressing your gratitude to the two treasures of the Buddha and the priest, right? You've already expressed your gratitude to the law, the third treasure, in the second prayer, right? So Nichimoku is not one of those three treasures. In other words, he's outside of that, but nevertheless, he was the first priest, if you like, ordinary high priest, to follow. So, therefore, just as a symbolic thing, the Daimoku for Nichimoku is done silently, and only the Daimoku for the three treasures is done out loud. So it's purely a ceremonial thing and symbolic. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Next question? Yes, Sandy.
Can you say the first part of the question? I didn't catch it.
I just said this is something that possibly in my research that is quite frequent references to if you use those so you call it excessive suffering after a death. Because I always understood that from these teachings that
I see. I see. The reason for that that sort of remark by Nichiren Daishonin is that, of course, a person who is living in the world of greed, say, or animality, or anger, or any of the lower worlds, they may not get retribution from cause and effect in this lifetime. Because in fact, the devilish force of life is really protecting them. You see, it's the reverse of what we're trying to achieve, okay? But at the point of death, the environment ceases to have any effect on one's life. And therefore, the Buddhist teaching, quite reasonably and logically, is that at the point of death, whatever basic tendency existed in your life will continue during the period of latency or coup. And indeed you'll be reborn in that life state. So, therefore, if someone is in animality, or greed, and is really, committed all sorts of nasty things, made many bad causes, in that time of death, the point of death, even if they're in their animality state or greed state still, probably in the end they'll go into hell when they're actually dying, and they'll remain in hell for the whole period that they're in coup, in latency. That's right. After their death, he says, they will drop into hell. So also, of course, there are many theories expressed by doctors and scientists about what happens immediately after death. And there is a common factor, which is that it seems that all that you've done in your lifetime, good and bad, flashes across your mind very, very rapidly. But you feel incredible pain, where you've made bad causes. So a person who's lived most of his life in the state of animality will certainly suffer. And through that, in hell. Okay. So probably at the moment of dying, too, there are many regrets. That's right. Yeah. That makes sense. Good. Okay.
Right, next question, please.